Hello everyone, welcome back to UNC YouTube channel. This is a channel where I discuss everything about our Malaysian real estate news trend, including new property launches sometimes. And of late, I have even included cafes review in Penang Island. Today in this episode, I'm going to talk about PLS, which stands for Private Lease Scheme. If those of you who have watched my earlier video, I did a video about a civil lawsuit by a group of 107 buyers against a developer for misrepresentation, which result in this bunch of buyers buying into real estate which is actually under a PLS scheme instead of a leasehold scheme. So today in this video, I would like to share with everyone what really is PLS, or stands for Private Lease Scheme. I believe many of you have not heard of PLS scheme. In fact, this scheme was something unheard of in Malaysia more than 10 years ago. Being a relative new concept, many do not comprehend the material differences between PLS and leasehold property. It's very alarming that some even equate both PLS and leasehold property as the same product. This is what happened to the buyers of the Meridin project in Meridin, Iskandar, which resulted in the civil lawsuit of 107 buyers against a developer, which I did record a video about this issue. So if you are keen to watch on this video, I will put the link up here and also down here. Feel free to watch this video after the end of this current one. It was reported in the media that PLS was first mooted by Iskandar Investment Bhd, IIB, which is the strategic developer of Iskandar, Malaysia. The idea is that IIB, being the landowner of Meridin, will grant leases over the Meridin freehold land to various third parties while still remaining the ownership of the land. This third party will then act as a housing developers, selling both the properties and also the leases to the end purchasers. At the end of the lease period, the land will revert back to IIB, as the transaction was merely a lease transaction and will not affect IIB's freehold title ownership. So why do I decide to make this video? Because I get to know that of late there are efforts to lobby the introduction of PLS concept into our National Land Code and also to the Strata Title Act. Mind you, the initial introduction of PLS appears to be motivated by the effort to prevent foreigners from possessing too much land in the state of Johor, as reported in the mainstream media. However, if this PLS is being included into our National Land Code, it means that this concept can then be adopted by all the developers nationwide throughout Peninsular Malaysia, and universally is going to affect all Malaysians or the public regardless of our citizenship. Hence, to prevent ourselves from becoming a victim like those of the Meridin project, the best defense for us is get to know and understand what is PLS and what are the repercussions if we were to own a property under PLS scheme. Before I dive into the full details, I would appreciate for an early thumbs up, as I do put in a lot of efforts in making up this video, and it will also help me in growing my channel and also helping the YouTube algorithm to recommend my video to more people who are interested about our real estate in Malaysia. Appreciate much. So now let us dive into the full detail. What is actually PLS? PLS actually stands for Private Lease Scheme, and it offers no proprietary rights to buyers who buy properties under such scheme. In fact, it is merely a long-term tenancy, or they call it long-term leases. Buyers are just deemed as the sublessees. Whereas for leasehold property, you will have proprietor rights on the property, and you will also be issued with a title or strata title depending on the development of the property that you are buying into. Second, under PLS scheme, the landowners are usually private corporations. Private corporations are not charitable bodies. They are not obliged to take into account any social factors when determining whether should they extend the lease to the buyers. Even if eventually the landowners decided to extend the lease for the buyers, the premium that will be payable will be determined at their absolute discretion. Whereas for leasehold property, the extension is at the absolute discretion of the state authority and with payment of a premium. The retention of this discretion is intended for the situation where if the state authority need to take back the land for public development purpose. However, as a matter of public policy and also out of social obligations, state authority will usually approve the application for renewal of the leasehold property subject to payment of premium, which in certain circumstances can only be a payment of a very nominal sum. The most recent case study which we could refer to is the PJ Old Town Section 1 and 2 areas, where it was under a 16 years lease, and when the lease expires, the state authority actually renewed the leases to another 99 years just with a nominal payment of ringgit Malaysia 1,000 and with some reasonable condition attached to it. Third one, you have to be aware that if you are buying properties under PLS scheme, in fact, you are just renters in perpetuity. Fourth, personally, I would also think that if PLS were to become a reality, it may actually result in private landowners having a monopoly ownership on all those freehold land. Number 5, PLS could also potentially create a generation of homeless people. How? This happens when the PLS leases expires after a lease of 66 or 99 years old, with no expectation for the leases to be able to get renewed at a reasonable fees. And then if this were to happen, house owner would then have to live at the whim and fancy of developers or the landowners, which is a sad thing. And number 6, since if you are to buy a property under PLS, you are in fact merely just a renter in perpetuity. There's no way you can actually pass down this property ownership to the next generation. So PLS would actually prevent wealth from being passed down from generation to the next generation, which is not a good thing because most people who have a favor over property investment, one of the reasons is that they could actually pass down their wealth from generations to generations. And number 7, the scary part is that PLS properties depreciate and become worthless in the long run as the leases continue to reduce in its tenure. The house buyer could end up losing everything and become homeless after struggling to pay off full market price with interest and risk, while the land proprietors gain everything with enhanced value without having to do anything. And for me, this is something that I would strongly oppose to it, and I hope that our government will realize that with the introduction of PLS, it will not be good for the whole rakyat. And lastly, if PLS really become a trend in our country, it would eventually reduce the supply of property ownership in the market. Thereafter, it would push up the price of the already unaffordable house prices even further up to the roof. And you can then anticipate that there will be a mad rush by the rich parents to buy up all the land with freehold status. Why? Because these landowners can then lease out the land to a third party for further development while still retaining the rights and ownership to the land upon expiration of the private leases. So in conclusion, if PLS were made a reality and be included into our national land code, the entire property landscape of Malaysia will be changed forever, from sale of property with title ownership to a long-term rental or lease of property for a tenure. Freehold land would then become the most sought-after commodity by the cash-rich land barons and property developers, whereupon prices will then escalate and house buyers will continue to remain as tenant in perpetuity rather than as an owner. So with such huge ramification, I would appeal to our authorities to review PLS with more care and consideration for the future consequences that would befall our nation prior to approving such scheme. I would think that our government should not paddle to the needs of Meridin and those in Johor Bahru and must instead consider the overall ramifications across our country. PLS will definitely create a lot of confusion not only to the rakyat but also to the bank, commissioner of building and also to our property market. So this is my sharing for today. I hope with me sharing out this video, it would help to create more awareness among all our rakyat so as to make sure that we do not become the next victims of buying into a property under PLS scheme, thinking that is actually the same with a leasehold property. So thank you for watching this video until the end, and as usual, before I end this video, I'd like to say always be aggressive in learning but be safe in investing. Bye bye and see you again.